All right, our problem today is this program can determine the average of some unknown count of integers. The number of integers can vary, and this cannot be initially set by user input. Instead, use a while loop and a sentinel value of no value to cease integer input. Return or enter key entered without a numeric value. Display the average accuracy to 2 decimal places. All right, so yeah, this is what we want to do, these two things here. We enter some variable number of integers, and we stop when we press the just enter without entering a value. So this is a while loop, and this is why we would use a while loop. A for loop would be great if we knew how many times we were going through a loop, but we don't. So um, how do you so what do we need to conceptualize here, right? First, like what do we want? The average values entered is, so average is just going to be an average, which is the sum of a bunch of values divided by the count of those values. So that's what we want to do. And we know a while loop, it deals with a conditional, right? So you say while something, and that something has to resolve to either true or false. Right? So like x equals 3, x is less than 5. Something like this here is a conditional, something that resolves to true or false. So considering that, what is the condition that once it becomes false, we want to stop this while loop? Well, the condition is this here, right? This is the break, this blank here. So let's talk about a variable. We're going to call it entered value, right? Because this is something that the user entered. Once this entered value equals nothing. So if we start at nothing, entered value equals nothing is true. So this entered value, once this gets to nothing, then we're going to break the loop. Now, at this point, we haven't yet gotten into the loop. And if we leave it like this and enter while entered value doesn't equal nothing, do something, it's never going to enter the loop, right? Because it already is nothing. So we need to set the value to something. And let's do 0 because it's not going to affect us at all. If we add it to something, it's not going to mess up with our numbers. I feel like we need something else here, though. We're going to need the sum, right? And we're going to need the count. We're going to need to know all of this information, and it's going to change along the way. So let's do that as well. And I'm not going to call it sum because sum is a built-in function. Instead, I'm going to call it the sum. And we're going to start at 0 because we have nothing yet. And our count is equal to 0. This is going to be, each time we do it, we're going to increment it by 1. This is going to be the bottom of the average, right? Because the average equals the sum divided by the count. So in the end, we're going to be dividing the sum by our count. But for now we need to get through the loop. But so we're just starting. We're not yet into the loop, but I think we're ready to get into the loop. So what do we want? We want while entered value does not equal, this is a comparison operator, is equal to, is not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, but not equal to is the, what is that, exclamation point equal sign. That means while the entered value does not equal, and it's going to be just a blank string. So when they just press enter without entering anything. And then we tab over to get into the while loop. And what happens now? Now we are going to get our value, right? Entered value equals input, enter next value, or whatever it says. And then with that value, we are going to add this to our sum. And we're going to add 1 to our count. And this is going to be a problem. And I'll show you why when we do it, right? 34, unsupported operand type plus equals int and string. This means that you can't add a string to an integer. Our count is 0, that's an integer, but entered value, when we get this new value, it becomes a string. That string is this. And it sure looks like a number, but it's not. It's a string representation of a number. So how do we get over this? Well, let's call x 34, 32, sure. And if we look at the dir of x, we can see what methods a string has. And it has a lot of methods, but one of them is digit. So if, let's see what happens, right? X dot is digit. And this is a function, so we need to call it with the open and close parentheses. So this is a string, but it recognizes with this that it is a digit. Now let's call y not a digit. Y dot is digit. That's false. So this here is going to be a conditional that we're going to be able to use. This is digit is a conditional that we'll be able to use inside here. So let's try this again. Let's see. We're going to get, while the entered value is not, oh wait, I'm going to clear this out. Reset our entered value to 0. I don't think we messed with our sum. Oops, the sum or our count. So they're both 0 still, so we're good. So while entered value does not equal that open close, then we're going to get our input. Entered value equals input. Enter value. And the sum entered value. However, this is a problem, right? We need to convert it. And I think I jumped ahead of myself because what you might think is what you can do is just turn this into an integer. And you can, usually, entered value. And I'm going to get out of this and show you why it fails. Entered value 23, 34, 5, 34. The problem is going to be here, and this is where that is digit is going to come into play, because this is not a digit. So what happens here is that it tries to turn a empty string into an integer, and it can't do that. It's saying this empty string here is not, I can't make that into an integer. So that's where the is digit is going to come into play. So let's try this again. Entered value is 0. Oh, let's reset our sum equals 0. Oops, our sum, our count. While entered value does not equal an empty string, we're going to get the entered value, input, enter number. Now, we're going to have to ask if entered value dot is digit. And this is going to return true if it's a number and false if it's an empty string or anything else that's not a digit. So if that's the case, then we can convert it to an integer safely. So now we can, what do we call it? Our sum int entered value and our count plus equals 1, right? We want to add 1 to our count. Okay, I think that might be it for the while loop. Let's see. What were our numbers? 95, 80, 65, 40, enter. All right, so we have not crashed. That's a good thing. We don't have our last line here, but that's what we're going to do now. We need to get it to say 70.00. So what do we have? Our sum, our count. So our sum divided by our count. It gives us 10, so that's fun. Let's see if we can make this better. Let's call it AVG equals our sum divided by our count. Now I think with, I always mess this up, uh, but it's going to be string formatting to make this work. And the first thing, we're going to have something on one side and then a colon and something else on the other side. On the left side of the colon, we're going to have what we're going to put there. And on the right side, we're going to have how we want to format it. It is a float. So a float is not a digit, but a thing that has decimals. So, and we want the period is going to be the decimal point. So if we want 2 in front, 2.2 would be 2 in front and 2 behind the decimal point. We don't care the front. We want the front to be as long as possible, so we'll leave that out. 0.2, and we need to identify it as a float, I think. And this is an F because this is an F string. This makes this possible. This is in Python 3, which you definitely should be programming in. I'm not going to talk about the percent things from Python 2, but I would use F strings. F strings allow you to use these squiggly brackets and inject things into strings like this. Our average is, and then the squiggly brackets, and then we put in whatever we want to inject into that string. Let's see if it worked. Maybe it did. Hey, it did. That's cool. So yeah, that's the answer. Um, I think maybe. I don't even know if I can remember. We could also do maybe. I don't think it's like 0. Our average is, and then you do it like this, where you do dot format and then average. Oh wait, no, you're going to put this 0 colon 0.2f. I think it's like that. Yeah, that's a different way to do it with the dot format at the end. This will work clearly, but I just like the F strings. Everyone likes the F strings. So I would use the F strings unless the F strings don't work. Then use this dot format where you're going to identify this is an index. So it would be like print if you had x equals uh, Brandon, y equals orange, you would say like print 0 for the zeros index. Favorite color is dot format, and then you would put in the values that you want to replace there. The F string would be the same thing, would be done like this. X, favorite color is Y. And I hope you can see why F strings are superior as far as readability is concerned. But they both give you the same result. So anyway, let's go ahead and check this second part and see if this, well, we got a entered value, our sum equals 0, our count equals 0, and let's get our loop going while entered value doesn't equal 0. Entered value, get our entered value. If it's a digit, our sum, we're going to add that, convert it to an integer, and then we're going to increment our count. That should do it. So we should be able to do the same thing, 34, 33, 9805, 56, 22, 567, enter to stop. And the last thing we needed to do was get our average. I'm pretty sure we could have just put our sum and like we could have just put this in here. Let's see. Yeah, we could have just done it like that. But that'll do it. Let me know what other questions you got. Thank you.